going on, Knicks family? It's your boy, UnclefOOlio, and I'm back with another episode of The Kontroversy, ladies and gentlemen. As always, these episodes are sponsored by Nothing But Knicks. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell to be notified anytime we go live. Kontroversy videos, Knicks videos, Queen's Court, all the content we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. I can't even get the words out. Queen's Court, Knicks and Bruises, NBA Report. We have it all for you here, right here on NBK, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have a special guest with me. He is the co-host of the dope dynamic trio of Knicks Morning Brew, ladies and gentlemen. They do a phenomenal job over there. I have the link in the description of this video. 1/3 of this dream team, ladies and gentlemen. I have one and only Phil Porto's in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Phil, what's good with you, my man?
What up? What up? Appreciate you, bro. We've been talking about this for a hot minute, but our schedules just haven't worked out. So I appreciate you having me. We had you earlier in the season, and that was a total blast because, what people don't know is that with Twitter characters, you only know so much about someone's opinion. And so you and I thought we were on complete opposite ends of the spectrum till we actually had full-on conversation and realized that we had a lot more in common than we thought. And so I'm looking forward to this because it's some topics that we really haven't chatted on. So I'm looking forward to it. End of season. So we got a lot to talk about. But I appreciate you having me on, bro. For real. Appreciate you.
Thank you. No problem, man. Just love the show love. I love coming on you guys' pod. You guys do a phenomenal job over there, as I mentioned. And it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, look, it's crazy how much you can agree with someone just by having a conversation. You may think you disagree with someone, but a simple conversation for those out there in any type of walk of life or any type of issue in society, a conversation goes a long way. You know what I mean? So I'm glad I was able to do that with my guy Phil here. It's been a blast, man. It's been a pleasure. As you know, the Knicks are home right now. We're in Cancun right now. Tonight's game one of the Eastern Conference Finals between Boston and Miami. Yeah. I honestly feel like the Knicks should have been playing tonight or yesterday. However, the NBA schedule worked itself out, but obviously we're not. So we're going to talk about that. And listen, the thesis of this show is going to be, it's Tom Thibodeau on the clock, right? It's Tom Thibodeau on the clock. And we're going to get to that. Before we talk about any of this Knicks stuff, obviously, we're gonna talk about it at length, I promise, ladies and gentlemen. But I do want to kind of get your opinion on the Ja Morant thing. It's been all over Twitter all day, and I just been commenting on it recently. So I just want to get your quick thoughts on the whole Ja Morant situation. There's some people that don't think Ja Morant did anything wrong. There's some people who look at it from a different perspective, like I do. And there's some people that want to completely vilify Ja Morant. So just give me your quick thoughts on that situation.
Yeah. So for me, with you got to go to Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. So for someone who is just an average Joe that is on, TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and they post something like that, I'm not going to get all up in arms, because at the end of the day, that's their life. Like they are just an average Joe. They're going to make whatever decisions they want to make. I think where the problem comes in is first, the amount of people whose eyes are on him. Like you look at how many kids aspire to be a Ja Morant, when they get older. They're playing ball. They see the accolades and the excellence that he plays with. They aspire to be that, and we already know that it's so hard to keep people from being influenced by what they see or what they hear, even if it's fake. Like growing up in the hip hop community, you knew so many of these like rappers didn't actually live that life whatsoever. You knew they were complete actors, but there was still that group of people that would watch or listen and be influenced to go that route because so-and-so was like that. They aspire to be that hood rich, dream. And so with Ja Morant, it's a little frustrating because if you watch the show with Cameron and Mace, they talked about it when it first came out. They were talking about how the biggest issue with the thing is that a lot of people will say, like even quoting Biggie, you either sell crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. You're aspiring to get out of that life. And so Mace and Cameron are talking about so many of us have fought to get out of that, and now we're not pushing that because that's no longer who we are. Like maybe when we first started MCing, that's who we were. So we promoted it. But our goal was to use that to get out of that. With Ja Morant, he doesn't come from that. And now that he has this success and this lifestyle, he's portraying what most people try to get out of. And so I think the big issue as well is that he gave that long, lengthy apology, asking for forgiveness, asking, for people to believe in him, asking for Memphis and, Powerade and Nike to like forgive him for what he did, that he, was going to aspire for more. And now it's like, okay, it hasn't even been a few weeks. You're out of the playoffs, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter what your apology was. So people are starting to think that it's empty words. And I think that's the problem, is how do you believe something that is a repeat of what you just apologized for a few weeks ago? So for me, the biggest issue is who he is and what he's representing to a large audience of people, especially youngins that might want to aspire to be like him.
Right. Okay. And I got you. And I definitely understand that analysis. So I have oftentimes when we have opinions on things, people expect you to just be one way and you not provide any nuance. To me, I always love to provide nuance. I think that's very important when we talk about these kinds of things. I think you're absolutely correct when you mentioned the fact that Ja Morant already has one strike against him. And then he came out with the whole apology thing and, had the interview with Jalen Rose, and they sent him to some clinic or whatever for 8 days. NBA suspended him for 8 games. 6 of them was already served. He was out 2 more games so he can be ready for the playoffs. All of that happened, right? Clearly doesn't look good on his part to come out and do the same exact thing that he got in trouble for the first time. I am a conservative by nature. I just let everybody know that I am a conservative person. I do believe in the Second Amendment. But I am also Black, right? And I am also, unfortunately, I am a person that also lost a brother to gun violence. So I don't take this issue lightly at all whatsoever. But at the same time, I do believe in freedom, and I do believe in the Second Amendment. So I'm very conflicted with this kind of thing. Yeah. And hip hop, and sometimes it gets, hip hop in general, music in general, it is people look up to that and they aspire to be that. But hip hop is also a reflection of the community, right? And oftentimes basketball and hip hop get intertwined, right? So I look at it from that perspective. And I understand why someone like Ja Morant or someone young might be looking at hip hop and try to emulate what they do in the music videos. But I do think there's a such thing as responsible use of a gun. And what Ja Morant did on video twice or whatever was irresponsible use of a gun. I don't think he was promoting Second Amendment rights at all. I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he was basically showing off, being irresponsible, and his use of a firearm. I just don't want people to look at that, particularly people in my community. I'm just going to be frank. I'm talking about people in my community. Oftentimes we say, no guns. We don't want any guns. We don't want any guns. But I do believe in the right to defend yourself. And I don't want this situation to be put across and make Ja Morant the fall guy or the portrait of gun violence in America, because I think it's deeper than him, right? A lot of times in our communities, there is either there's a kill or be killed mentality. And now one can look at it and say, well, Ja Morant has millions of dollars. What does he need to carry around a gun for? Would he rather be out there without a gun, being a sitting duck, being a lame duck, while someone tries to rob him or basically harm his family? Should he be out there without a firearm to defend himself and his family? So I look at it from that perspective. I'm not saying what Ja Morant did was correct. It was reckless. It was wrong. But at the same time, I think the response from some people in our community of, taking guns away from us, I think is a detriment to our community more than it helps us. Right. I still believe in the right to carry a firearm. Just do it responsibly. I just say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I completely agree with you. I'm to the point that I want my wife to have one, I don't ever want to be out of town and my wife not have that accessible to her to protect herself if I was traveling or anything like that, So I completely agree with the right to bear arms, and here's the thing is you would be foolish to think that out of how many NBA stars there are, that none of them have a weapon.
Right.
The problem is, and the difference is you don't see that mass amount of NBA players on Instagram listening to music, flaunting that they have a weapon. Like that's the difference. Is I'm sure Julius Randle has a weapon. I'm sure, friggin' Domantas Sabonis might have a weapon, it doesn't matter what walk of life. These guys are famous, these guys know that they have to protect their own, and yes, you have security and this, that, and whatever, but you're not always with security. You're not going out to a movie with your friends and your security chilling in your back seat all the time, when you're home. So I agree. It's just the way that he wants to portray it. He wants to portray a lifestyle that's not even his, and that's the issue, is portraying something that's not real. Have that weapon, protect it. But if you don't really want everyone to know that you have it, you wouldn't be showing it. That's the thing, is you could have it, let it be what it's for, protection. But when you try to do this whole, like, look at me, you're drawing the attention. You're doing it intentionally.
And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. That's the issue with this thing, right? Has nothing to do whether it's legal or not in Tennessee. Like, if John Morant did that in New York, right, he'll be going to jail. But if John Morant did that in New York or he did it in Tennessee, it doesn't matter where exactly he did it. And I don't agree with JJ Redick and some of these people, Lee Escobedo, salute to Knick of Time show, who says that, well, he did it in Tennessee. That means he did nothing wrong. The government does not set the moral standard for what's right and wrong. They just define what's legal and illegal, but it doesn't mean it's right and wrong. 150 years ago in Tennessee, slavery was legal, right? So by that metric, you could say slavery was right? So I don't necessarily believe in that part of it. Obviously, it exists in the whole Second Amendment thing. That part is there. But what you said is completely right. I think the reckless nature of flaunting guns, showing off, that you have one, trying to portray this gangster image that's not necessarily him. I think that's the issue here. And CP the franchise from Knicks Fan TV, salute to him. I think he had a phenomenal video today, saying that John Morant is not only playing with his money, he's playing with his life. He's playing with his life. And I think that needs to be definitely set in this whole entire conversation. So I just wanted to provide that little bit of talk about that a little bit, because that's just been bothering me all day. And I think it's something important for us to talk about. Teach responsible use of firearms, not just taking all guns away. And I definitely want to bring that up. Thank you for talking about that with me. I know it's non-Knicks related, but I definitely want to bring it up. Salute to the chat and salute to everyone that's tuning in with me. I definitely appreciate you hopping on with me. It's been a while since I've been on, but I definitely want to give some love to the chat. So let me just do it real quick. Dwayne Dennis, what's happening in the NBA? He says Nick Nurse fired, Mike Budd fired, Doc Rivers fired, Monty Williams, and James Dolan signed off on firing a Rangers coach. Hopefully Dolan has a conversation with Leon and fires Tom Thibodeau. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Salute to Jeff Clafter. He says, salute, the Knicks have the most successful season in a decade, and we should fire the coach. If only a proven replacement who is better comes along. Well, absolutely. That's the whole purpose. I mean, I don't want to just fire him and just hire anybody. You know what I mean? And I'm not advocating for Tom Thibodeau to be fired right now, and we're going to talk more about that. But no one wants to hire someone who's worse than the person that's in the position. I think that goes without saying. Sailor Pipe Man is asking the same question. Who's replacing them? How stupid can we be to replace them? They made the second round. This is not a championship team. We're a playoff team. Okay, we're going to talk about that. By the way, saying that this is the best season in 10 years is not really saying much. I mean, to us, to the fans, I get it. It's the best we've seen, but that's not really saying much. That's a low bar to judge whether someone should be fired or not. A couple more of these comments. Salute to Robert Woodard. Jigga Man, salute. Jigga Man Porto, what's going on? All right. And for those who don't know, Phil and Jigga are brothers, if I didn't know that. That's his bro. You know what I'm saying? And I'm assuming this is Heck right here. No,
that was me.
That was you. Okay, I don't know for the life of me who is behind you guys' accounts. I just say what's up, and then someone replies.
Heck is in there. He's Project Nerd. He's somewhere up in there.
Okay, gotcha. I'll be just like, whoa, what's going on? Salute to Sherwin. Good afternoon. I found most of the recent chats to be stupid, calling for Tibbs to get fired and to trade Randle. Okay, we're going to talk about that. And let me see if I can get one more comment. Quentin Brown, it's entertainment, talking about John Morant. If you choose some dumb ish, don't blame an entertainer. Okay. The Public Enemy. Hip-hop is not involved with John Morant's decisions, period. NRA is not backing hip-hop, so don't associate hip-hop with the gun. What if it's the National African American Gun Association? They're the black version of the NRA. I'm assuming they back hip-hop, right? So this is not about the NRA. Screw the NRA, right? NRA is an organization, and I don't want to get sued or get Sim sued, but they're an organization that has its flaws too, right? So I'm not saying back the NRA or anything like that. What I was saying is hip-hop is often a reflection of the community in which they come from. It's like a chicken and the egg situation. Like, hip-hop didn't start what was going on in our communities. What was happening in our communities is what allowed hip-hop to be what it is and become the art form that it is, right? So that's where I was coming from, and that's why I mentioned that. All right, let's talk about the Knicks, Phil. So obviously, topic of the show is going to be, it's Tom Thibodeau on the clock. I want to start off with the second question first, though. Do you think that the Knicks overachieved this season? Talk to me about what you thought about, the regular season and the playoffs as a whole, or break it down the way you want to. And tell me about if you think the Knicks exceeded their expectations.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to look at first what the predictions were for us. ESPN had us winning 2 more games than we previously did. They had us as like a 39-43 team. So of course you have to look at that and go, okay, we exceeded expectations. Instead of 39 wins, we had 47 wins. And if you look at some of those games, we beat ourselves at the end of some of those games. Like that Dallas game where we friggin' all of a sudden let them get like 20 points. And it felt like in the last 60 seconds of the game. A lot of those were games that were within our reach. So we could have been a 50 plus, team win if we would have locked some of those things down and made some better decisions in the fourth. So we did play better. We played a lot better. You look at Jalen Brunson. I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. I personally had high expectations for Jalen Brunson as someone who loved watching previously. I'm a diehard Knick fan, but I love the NBA. Like if I could, I would watch every single game, every single day, no matter what. So I watched a lot of Jalen Brunson and I had high expectations, but even with my high expectations, he exceeded those, and so if everyone else's expectations were lower than mine, he for sure exceeded those. A lot of people thought we would be a play-in team at most. We clinched the 5th seed, even with a lot of injuries from RJ, Jalen, Quentin Grimes, Mitchell Robinson. Like we had a lot of injuries throughout the season, and we still were able to clinch that 5th seed. So I do think we exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. I think that there were some things that we all really wanted to see that we didn't, which we'll talk about. But I can't look at the season and say we did not exceed expectations. But like you said, when the bar is set so low, it's kind of hard not to exceed those expectations, Right. And so for me, I'm thankful that we exceeded those, but I'm also not going to let that be my measure of like, let's just stay here, because it's better than what we've had, like a hot dog for lunch is better than just like Doritos for lunch. But that doesn't mean you should be eating nonstop hot dogs every single day of your life. It's going to have an impact and eventually it's going to get old. So for me, we exceeded expectations, but I don't think that should be a standard of what we hold ourselves to and say, let's just keep getting here because now we're here for a while. Like, no, where we were was trash. So now we're at a good spot. Now we need to build on that in order to say that next year exceeds expectations.
I agree with you 100%. I think the Knicks definitely did exceed expectations. I had them as a playing team somewhere around the 500 mark, either a little bit of games above, a little bit below. They obviously shattered that during the regular season. And in the playoffs, because Milwaukee got eliminated, I thought it was wide open. And I thought the Knicks were going to win that series in Miami in 5. Obviously, we didn't do that. So to me, we did not meet expectations in the playoffs, in my opinion, considering what happened to Milwaukee. Going into the playoffs, yes, yeah, not really. I think we were at expectations. Some people had them beating Cleveland. I did. Some people didn't, right? So I think, that's kind of 50-50. So getting to the second round, I think was right at where we thought we were going to be going into the playoffs for the most part.
Yeah.
Regular season, though, we shattered expectations, right?
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think talking about what Tom Thibodeau, has done for this organization, and comparing it to the last 10 or even 15 years of Knicks basketball, that's not really saying much. But the standard has been so low for so long, it's very difficult not to exceed those expectations. But I will say that Tom Thibodeau is a regular season coach. We've seen how wonderful he has done in the regular season as far as win-loss record. His winning percentage is high all time as far as a coach in the regular season. I think it's now we start to shift our focus to the playoffs and talk about that, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's how coaches are getting fired nowadays, right? When we talk about expectations going into the season, it's not just us as fans. We also have to look at the front office. Apparently, the front office thought this team could have went further, right? And that we've been hearing that over the news media lately. James Dolan, what is his expectations for this team? Did this team meet his expectations, right? And we already know how volatile he is when it comes to making decisions. Yeah. So I think this conversation is very, very fluid. And I just think we need to kind of focus on moving on to that next chapter. If that's with Thibodeau or if that's without him, I think we should focus on moving on to that next chapter. Let me get to some comments in the chat real quick. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for tuning in with me. I'm here with Phil Porto from Knicks Morning Brew. Definitely go in the description of this video to get the link to their channel and look at the phenomenal work that they're doing. And also put a link to his Twitter in the chat as well, so you can interact with him as well. Let me get some of the comments in here. Some of this Morant stuff. A gun owner is to protect your family, and it should be left at home. What if you're out with your family? What if it's just you by yourself and you're the breadwinner for your family? Right? Are you really protecting yourself by leaving your gun at home and not having protection? Right? So I think these are all questions that we definitely have to ask. Humble Down says, I strongly believe that the roster needs more work than the coach does. So I'll look to make changes there first and get taller and more shooting and get more time in a winning culture, then Eastern Conference Finals for us. Okay, fair enough. YMN family, we don't need to adjust much on the roster. Coach needs to make coaching adjustments, and if he didn't, get rid of him, period. Okay. Clive Ensdery says, definitely overachieved. Remember the Nets fell off when they traded for KD and Kyrie. We probably wouldn't even be in the 5th seed. Agreed. Someone had a question for me I just seen. Ranrock, salute to you. He said, Josh, question. At the beginning of the season, do you think we were going to make it to the second round? No. And Shabo Vibe says, peace, salute, family. All right, so Phil, with that being said, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation. Is Tom Thibodeau on the clock? Is he on the clock? And I'm going to start it off first before you go. I just want to say to people, I'm not advocating for Tom Thibodeau to be fired this offseason. A lot of times when people see that, they think, oh, I'm off the Tom Thibodeau train. I am not at all. I am appreciative of what Tom Thibodeau has done for us. I don't think that it's a waste of time having Tom Thibodeau set the principles that he's, for this young roster. I don't think that's a waste of time, and I'm not advocating for him to be fired. But I think the question is appropriate. Is Tibbs on the clock, considering Monty Williams and all these coaches that have been fired that won championships and been fairly successful in their locations? I think it is a fair conversation to talk about. So I'll give the floor to Phil, and Phil, tell me, do you think Tom Thibodeau is on the clock?
So I think there's a huge difference between if I think he is and I think he should be. Okay. I personally don't believe with the franchise and with the relationships and everything like that he's got with the front office. I don't think that they see things the same way that all these other organizations have seen things when it comes to their coach. Because if you think about it, within like the first season, okay, cool. Second season, horrible season. So some people would say, hey, I think most organizations would have let Tibbs go after that, and that did not happen. So this season, overachieving, whether you think it's because Tom Thibodeau or the players rose to the occasion or, the help of assistant coaches or whatever, like we said, expectations have been overachieved for a lot of people. And so a lot of people, also myself, think that maybe the front office has that same standard of setting a bar of what is good based off of what's been before. Like, it's been better than we were. So This is a good thing. This is a good thing, And so something that JD from Knicks Fan TV, shout out to him, said on the show that was really crazy to me was a lot of the fan base that isn't even considering the idea of moving forward with finding another coach or anything like that. They have this whole idea that Tom Thibodeau makes these players play hard for him, and that's why we won't get rid of him. But if you look at it, isn't that the standard of what you want players to do anyway? Like when you recruit a player, he was talking about, you really think that we went after Josh Hart, who is a hardworking player, and all of a sudden he started working hard because he came to play for Tom Thibodeau? Like, no, that's why we went after him. So in the same way, we can't fully just say that the players don't play hard or that they wouldn't play hard with another coach. We can't look at reasons to keep him. So for me, if I look at the coaches that have been fired, okay, so we go down and we're like, okay, Toronto Raptors just fired their coach. I look at the situation there and I'm like, okay, I can understand that. He didn't really get them to where they needed to go. They do have stars on their team. They weren't able to produce. Okay, I understand that. Milwaukee Bucks, best record in the season. So if we're going to keep a coach because of the season record, then that would be one that you definitely want to keep. Someone who's got the best record in the season, someone that has brought a chip to Milwaukee in the last few years, and you still let him go. You go, okay, that would be reason to fire Thibodeau then, if that's
don't forget about the defense either. Don't forget about the defense and how phenomenal they are stop defensively.
Elite defense, Drew Holiday. You have Drew and you have Giannis, who are both NBA, top teams in some way, shape, or form, whether it's defense or all around. And you go, man, that guy let go. So maybe we should entertain that. Then you look at Phoenix. They make a monster trade. They were, I think, third in the West, played great, had a great first series. Then they trickled out in the second against probably a way better team than we trickled out to. So we're just like, okay, so if if Monty could get fired, then maybe we should consider, what's going on there. And so when you look at everybody, you look at Doc Rivers and you go, okay, one of the best records in the East, Joel Embiid thrived as the MVP under him. So that could be consideration to fire Tibbs. So for me personally, I'm thankful for Tibbs. I am. I hated him coming into the season. Absolutely hated him. Like, seriously, the kind of guy that, like, I would want to flatten his tires, not for him to get hurt, just to see him go, oh, man, when he came to his car. Like, not wanting ill will to him, but wanting discomfort from him, Right. I did not like the guy. But to say that he didn't help and wasn't a major part in those exceeding expectations for our team, that would be silly of me. That would be foolish. Did I see growth from a guy that I thought had no chance of growth? Yes. This guy used to coach with his assistant coaches pretty much at a distance, did not care what anyone had to say. And when we all were frustrated, it was too bad. This is my team. Second half of the season, where do you see Johnny Bryant and the rest of the guys? At his side. He's conversating. He's figuring out the best things to do. So, hats off to him. However, he has proven time and time again that he is a pregame coach. He's not necessarily an in-game coach. And if you listen to the Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry interview, they gave Kyle Lowry gave Spoelstra all the praise in the world because he said that Spoelstra is able to figure out on the fly all the best scenarios for their team to change and figure out as they go. And that's what helped them, beat us. And Jimmy Butler called out the one-trick pony defense that we had against him. So Tom Thibodeau, great pregame coach, not an in-game coach. Good season coach, not a good postseason coach. Look at his record in the postseason. This is not hate. This is just facts. So for me personally, I think he should be on the hot seat. I think this is one of those, hey, thank you for getting us to where we're at, kind of Mark Jackson situations. But I'm ready for the Steve Kerr to come in. Someone with a fresh set of eyes, a fresh viewpoint on the game that could take our young core and stars and get us to where we need to go. And so I'm thankful for Tibbs, but I do think that it is time to kind of move forward because if you look, even Mark Jackson had a great win to loss record when he left, but they were able to say, I think he's gotten us as far as he can go. And that is the decision maker for me. Not my feelings, not anything else, but the fact that I think that Tom Thibodeau has hit a ceiling. And when you hit a ceiling, you have to go to the next man up.
I agree with you. I think that was spot on. I do want to say that because other coaches got fired across the league, that's not the primary reason why I'm saying that Tom Thibodeau was on the clock, right? So this is not because, Monty Williams got fired and Mike Budenholzer got fired and Doc Rivers and Nick Nurse and all these coaches got fired. That's not the primary reason here. For me, the primary reason why I'm saying Tom Thibodeau is on the clock is because you can make a legitimate argument that one of the biggest reasons the Knicks lost that series against Miami is due to coaching. He was outcoached in every facet of the game against Eric Spoelstra. Every facet of the game. Going into that series, we thought we were going to win that series. We beat Miami 3-1 during the regular season. But what happened during that series, right? I thought, Eric Spoelstra outcoached him tremendously. And the biggest issue that I have with Tibbs in regards to everything you said about him not being a good playoff coach is he's so rigid when he gets to the playoffs. A lot of people say that, in the playoffs, the rotations are going to slim and they're going to get shorter. No other team in the playoffs did that with their rotations. Nope. The rotations were 9-10 deep. Tibbs sometimes went down to 8, right? Even with injuries to key guys, right? So I'm just not a fan of that mentality. I think his style is old school. It's 90s style. And I think, in order for this team to take the next level, I think we need to have a fresh set of eyes in here, right? I'm still willing to keep Tom Thibodeau for another season because I think bringing another coach in for next year with this particular roster, I don't think it's going to necessarily take us over the hump. The Knicks still need more on their roster, no doubt. But talking about and making everything about defense and lack of offense. Look, the Knicks were bottom of all the playoff teams in points per game, bottom in field goal percentage, bottom in three-point percentage, bottom in assists per game. During the regular season, they were one of the worst teams as far as assists in the NBA, right? The Knicks don't have any type of offensive game plan. They seem to don't have any offensive game plan when they go out there and play, even during regular season. We were hoping that Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle would bail us out every possession because there's really no set plays that are run for anybody, with the exception of coming out of timeouts. And even come out of timeouts, sometimes there is no plays that the Knicks are running, right? And people are saying, well, the Knicks have to execute. Salute to Seth, Queen's Court, Dope Soul Sports Talk. Me and her had a very spirited discussion on this because her and Sim and Tony from Knicks and Bruises think that, the Knicks players have to execute offensively. But what are they trying to execute? What are the Knicks trying to do offensively? No one can really tell me what the Knicks are trying to do offensively. They have no game plan. Isolation, Tibbs' mantra is simple. Isolation, break down your man, or get to the hole. If the double comes, you kick it out. I mean, that's basics. That's basic. No off-ball man movement. It just seems like everyone's watching Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle dribble the air out of the basketball, and everyone's just stagnant. So I want more off-ball movement, and I don't think it's in Tibbs to really do that. He really has no offensive game plan. Now, if he had an offensive coordinator with him, I will be a little bit more open to keeping Tibbs there. And I think we do a better job against Miami offensively. But for the love of God, we shoot terribly. And he plays players way too long, in my opinion. The rotations are just way too short, very, very rigid. So that's why I'm saying he's on the clock. Now, who are we going to bring in outside of Tom Thibodeau? I think there's a lot of coaches we can bring in. The coach from Boston, Joe Mazzulla, right? No one heard of him before, right? Ime Udoka got them to the finals, right? And then he had his situation happen, and then this coach out of nowhere, Joe Mazzulla, comes in, takes over the reins, and now has that team in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think there's coaches out there. If you had to ask me the type of coach, I want someone younger, someone a little bit more innovative that's going to be able to mix some things up, not just offensively, but defensively.
Yeah. And to your point, a lot of people talk about, and I see it nonstop in the comments, Tibbs can't control people shooting bad. No, but he can put them in the right positions to shoot good.
Right.
Here's the thing. You have guys that are young in the playoffs. You have guys like Grimes, okay, that need to figure out their footing, that were a little cold, giving them the ball with 4 seconds left on a clock after Randle or Brunson can't get their ISO execution and expecting them to all of a sudden be able to shoot and catch fire is insanity to me. You're not running plays for these guys. Them shooting is the last option. It's drive, and if you can't drive, dish it out. That is the mantra. And so how are these guys supposed to become great shooters when they never know when they're going to get the ball? Their pass to them is not premeditated. A pass to them is not in the playbook. It's, hey, if I can't get mines, I'll try to find you with whatever time is left on the clock, and hopefully you execute. That's not offense. That's not offense at all. And you would think, once again, you look at what they were doing. We knew after game one, that they were going to change things up and pack the paint. That is when Tibbs had the opportunity to say, okay, we need to come up with some plays. Even if I'm not an offensive-minded guy, I need to pull in all my assistants, and we need to figure out some actual plays because our ISO game is not going to work against Spoelstra, who is going to lock us down in the paint as much as possible because he can do that. Game 2, we saw him lock us down. We saw their mindset switch. We saw that they weren't going to let Jalen Brunson be Jalen Brunson all game long. We saw that they weren't going to let Julius Randle be Julius Randle all game long. So that is where Tibbs does have to take responsibility and say, as the coach, I need to find other options. I can't just expect these two guys and RJ, because RJ was playing well, these three guys to just ISO it nonstop because they're locking us down where we're best. We need to figure out actual game plan. There was no game plan, and that's my issue. We need someone who's got a game plan. I like Tibbs in the fact that he's defensive minded, or so to speak, but you have to be defensive minded, not just pregame, but in game. Like Jimmy Butler knew that he was going to be doubled and triple teamed. He laughed in the postgame interview when they asked about the double team. Him and Kyle looked at each other and chuckled. They were like, "Oh, you mean triple teamed all the time?" And they were like, "Yeah, even quadruple teamed." He knew that was going to happen. So all their shooters were ready. We did not switch it up when we realized that they had that. You have to be able to say, "Oh crap, Jimmy Butler's figured us out. Why are we freaking going out half court to a guy that's not going to shoot it from half court? Like, he's not Steph Curry. Why are we double teaming Jimmy Butler at the half court line all series long?" Exactly. That's where Tibbs shows his flaws. He shows that he's defensive minded to a point. He is a coach to a point, but those areas that he lacks are areas we need if we're ever going to execute in the playoffs and not just in the season.
I 100% agree with you. I do want to add, in regards to the Miami Heat series, one thing that I didn't like, and I called it a mistake from the beginning, is the lineup change. Josh Hart in that starting lineup playing next to RJ Barrett. Yep. Now, I get it. Quentin Grimes was hurt probably for the beginning of that series, but he came back. That adjustment should have been made after game 2, if anything. But to go another game having Josh Hart in that starting lineup, I thought was a mistake. When I was arguing with people earlier in the season when we got Josh Hart, and they were saying, well, Quentin Grimes needs to be replaced because he isn't knocking down that three-point shot. It never was about Quentin Grimes not knocking down that shot. It's how Miami was defending him, right? They gave more respect to Quentin Grimes than they do to Josh Hart, because they know Josh Hart's not going to shoot. He's not a volume shooter. You know what I mean? So that's why they were leaving him open. They know he wasn't going to shoot that three-point ball. Now, even though statistically, and this is where stats can kind of lie, statistically, he had a higher percentage shooting the three than Quentin Grimes, but it was on less than half the attempts, right? Yeah. So Miami knew that Josh Hart wasn't going to shoot that ball. And to me, playing next to Randle and RJ, who need to get in paint, you just have to have more spacers on the floor. Not going to say that Quentin Grimes played great offensively or he shot the ball great, because clearly that's not true. And I want to have guys out there who can knock that three ball down. But specifically in that series, to me, I just feel like it was a mistake putting Josh Hart in the starting lineup. And I'm kind of hesitant paying Josh Hart a $20 million contract per year extension after this. And I'm very appreciative of what he can bring to the team. I just think $20 million is too high of a number for someone who's not going to be consistent offensively, right? And that's just kind of how I feel about that. Yeah.
But so with the Josh Hart, 20 is too much for me. I see him as like 18, 17, 18, bring him back. I also think that, once again, that was a coaching flaw, because we saw Josh Hart thriving with that second unit.
That's the other part. Yeah.
Like my whole thing is if you see something working and something is like being executed in excellence, and you're seeing your team succeed in that, why pivot from that? Why aren't you pivoting from the things that haven't worked, but you're pivoting from the one or two things that were working really, really well? So now you have Grimes, who is the kind of guy that needs more of a spot up type shot where he gets a great look, gets it dish out to him, makes the shot. He's coming off the bench instead of being in that slot. Josh Hart, who thrives in the fast-paced offense of not needing to take spot-up shots, but finding things as they come to him because it's so fast-paced that he finds good shots here and there. You're taking both of those guys out of their elements, mixing them, seeing it's not working, and it took how long to go back to what was working?
3 games.
I feel like Josh Hart was, given a really raw hand in that series, because we saw him do well in the Cleveland series because he was in that like fast-paced environment. And so everywhere you saw him succeed was with the second unit. So for me, that was a coaching flaw. And, when it comes to Emmanuel Quickley, that's a different story. He just didn't show up in the playoffs, as opposed to Josh Hart, who did, and then all of a sudden got taken out of where he's actually best and put into a position that made absolutely no sense, especially when you're in the playoffs. Everyone talks about the playoffs are different and they are harder. They are, people play way different. They play with, a lot more intensity. So to put a guy who's never been in our starting lineup all of a sudden in our starting lineup for that many games and expecting it to just flow naturally just didn't make sense to me.
Right, and they have different skill sets. I totally agree with you. Let me get some of these comments in here. I know we're kind of short on time. I do want to get to the last question before we close it out. Short show today, folks. I'm sorry.
No.
Busy.
We're gonna keep it going. We can go till 6:15. I'm good.
Okay, no problem. Let me get some of these comments in here. Sherwin says Dr. Rivers was fired because of Harden. Maybe, possibly so. It's a players' league. Everyone, the fans definitely need to realize that if the players can't get on board with the coach is out the door. That's just the nature of the business. Margaret Edwards, Doc Rivers could not get out of the second round. Agreed. The Public Enemy, Mike Woodson got to the Knicks to the playoffs, 53 wins. Knicks fired him. Why is Tibbs still here? He's nothing special. So I don't like the comparison to Mike Woodson because I think the Knicks at this point in time are in a different spot, right? A lot of people were advocating for Tom Thibodeau to be fired last offseason, which I don't think was appropriate. 2 seasons, 1 coach of the year. I just don't think it was appropriate at that time, right? I don't think it's appropriate right now to fire Tom Thibodeau. I'm still going to give him 1 more year because there are some changes. There are some changes on the roster that need to happen. I think if you're going to get rid of Tibbs now, I think you have to do some roster changes to help this team out just a little bit more. That's the reason why I wouldn't give it a Tibbs now. But I don't like the Mike Woodson comparison. The Knicks were way different back then. They had Carmelo Anthony, a team that was supposed to do a little bit more after they made the second round one of those years. Tony Wiley, sick of these coaches getting fired for these overhyped players that don't have mental fortitude to get the job done. Again, it's a players' league. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the business. Not every team can be like Miami and have a coach there for however amount of years, or the Spurs, Popovich, almost 25 years. You know what I mean? Only a few franchises in professional sports have it like that. You can think of the Steelers with Mike Tomlin or the Patriots with Belichick, right? These winning organizations. Not every team can do that, right? I just think it's very, very rare in today's day and age. Not saying I agree with coaches being rotated out, but you have to keep up with the times and keep up with the business, right? That's just the way it is. Jeff Clapper says Spo's the best coach in the NBA. Murdoch says thinking they have a buddy system and Tibbs won't go. I think we forgot who the owner is. Yeah, I know who the owner is. Listen, the Rangers had a coach for 2 seasons. One of them, 1 trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. The next year, they're out in the first round. That coach is gone, right? Because they have winning expectations on that roster. And James Dolan is a loose cannon. You don't know what he's going to do. You know what I mean? So I just think we have to keep that in mind. With Diego Wi-Fi, Mike Woodson had multiple All-Stars. See a couple more up in here. Mr. Apps, I'll address this after real quick. Josh, 100% facts, 1,000% facts. Bodega Wi-Fi, players have to show up. Agreed. I'm not letting the players off the hook here. I'm not doing that at all. Julius Randle definitely needs to show up, right? Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett needs to show up in that game 6, right? All of them need to show up. I just thought the Knicks offensively, they could have done a better job, and there's some different things that they can to do to try to get past Miami. All the coaching in the world doesn't help if the team can't execute. Execute what? What are the Knicks trying to execute? Isolation basketball, run out the shot clock and get a tough shot up? That's what it is for me. Like, I get it. The players need to execute, but the strategy just seemed flawed. Rand Rock said, I agree with you for once, finally. And let me get one more comment in here before I get to that other thing. Shooting 28% from 3 and 38% from the floor is Tibbs' fault. He's a part of it. Absolutely a part of it. So this is the last thing I'll say on this Ja Morant thing. I saw a good comment in here. Where did it go? Did I miss it? I think I did miss it. I'm not going to turn this into a political show. I do have a lot of political opinions. You carry on front salute to Sim in that show. Mr. Absolute Truth says, question, Josh, you said later for the NRA, but you say you're a conservative. If not for the NRA supplying legal firearms to our Southern ancestors, we wouldn't have protected our families from the KKK. Perhaps that might be true, but the NRA definitely has a history of not allowing, certain colors or certain people to be a part of their organizations. Right back in the 70s, when the Black Panthers were carrying guns, the NRA didn't want them to have guns. They actually fought against it. Right, and the reason why the Black Panthers wanted to have guns was to protect us from tyrannical governments, which was happening in the 70s. And that was one of the things that the Black Panthers stood for, and the NRA wasn't up for it. So I do think there's that component of it. Just because I am a conservative does not mean I'm a Republican. So I don't want to turn this into a political show. This is not what that is, but I definitely have opinions if y'all want to hear that part of it. All right, Phil. So changes need to be made, right? We already spoke about Tibbs. But I think there's some personnel changes that need to be made as well. I'm sure you do as well. Tell me, what would you do this offseason as far as personnel, considering everything, considering the salary, considering who might be available? Just tell me some things that you would like to see happen for this roster.
Yeah. So, for me, sometimes I hate being a Knicks content creator because whenever you share an actual opinion, of what you think for the roster, you're a hater of that change. Whoever that person is, you're just a hater for that person. You just don't like them. Even if you do like them, it's like, no, you really don't. People question everything. Me personally, the same way I feel like Tibbs has hit a ceiling of what he can do for us. I think Randle had a great season. I also think Randle has hit a ceiling of what he can do for us when it comes to being in the playoffs. And I don't solely blame it on Randle, okay? One thing we talked about this morning on the show is before this season, everyone said that the reason that Randle was unable to execute in the playoffs last time is because we didn't have a point guard. So what do? We go out and get probably the best point guard that is playing currently was playing currently in the NBA playoffs. Like his stats, his production, all that. You can argue that he was the best, if not top 2 point guards in the playoffs. Yet Julius Randle still did not show up. I'm not going to use the leg excuse because Jimmy Butler also had a leg issue. And
Absolutely.
Jimmy Butler showed up. Jimmy Butler took all responsibility, and wanted to make his team better. You saw Jimmy Butler effort every single game. There were times that you could make when you could make a reel, when someone could make a reel from one game that goes a minute and a half of a player just standing there on defense, the effort conversation is dead. Like, you can't tell me that you're going to find that in a lot of players where for a minute and a half, someone can make a reel of different clips of that player not showing any effort on defense whatsoever. So I don't blame it solely on him. This is a guy that in the bubble season was our number 1. Okay. He was told he was the number 1. We were going to build around him. When it didn't work, we brought in Jalen Brunson as our number 1. Randle moves to a number 2. He struggles with that. You can see all throughout the season and through the playoffs that he still wants to be a number 1. Why? Not because he's prideful or has an ego, but that's what he was used to in an orange and blue uniform. So, right. Of course, he's going to have those opportunities where his mind is going to go back to what we brought him in to be. He showed that he can't execute in the playoffs, so he would be great at a 3 position. If we brought someone in as a 2, he would thrive in the 3 position. But if he's already struggling being a number 2 after being told he was the number 1, you don't think he's going to struggle being the number 3, in an organization where he was supposed to be a number 1? So for me personally, I see trading Randle as beneficial for us and for him. Because if he went to an organization where he was brought in as a 3, where all he had to do was bully ball and play what he's best at, he would thrive. He would be the best number 3 in the NBA. You put him against a team, let's say, there's rumors now that everyone wants to talk because everyone talks anytime there's a potential trade of something, that the Portland Trailblazers want to keep Dame and they want to win now. They don't really care so much about being able to draft number 3 in the draft because they have a win now mentality. If you had a Dame Lillard alongside of a Jeremy Grant, and then you brought in Julius Randle as a 3rd option, he would be insane. Why? Because Dame is going to bear that burden that Julius was not able to bear as a number 1. Jeremy Grant is going to take a lot of that pressure off of him to where he always has to execute every single play. He can focus on bully ball and being incredible at that. You put him in that kind of a position and he's going to thrive. And so for us, the reason I say we have to move from Randle is because we have to choose. Brunson's going to be our guy. We know that. We're not going anywhere from Brunson. Like, you got to think, like, especially with Daddy working there, with, us trying to bring in the Villanova crew of Josh Hart, like, it seems like they're revolving it around Brunson. And honestly, off of his season and his playoffs, hell yeah, that's what I want to do. So if we're revolving around Brunson, the Brunson, RJ, Randle trio is not going to work moving forward. Like, people are already figuring it out that we are an ISO team. So unless RJ all of a sudden becomes, him or Randle become the most elite three-point shooter and they change their game completely to not be an in-the-paint player, the three of them aren't going to work, in my opinion. So we got to move on from one of them. I said it this morning. If I have to move on from either RJ or Julius, I'm going to move on from the guy who didn't show up in the playoffs and is 28 years old, as opposed to the guy who did show up in the playoffs and is 22 years old and has potential to grow with the team. So for me, I would move on from Julius Randle. I would bring in a dope sharpshooter and build around that. I have my elite, like in my mind, I have my NBA 2K roster. So like my NBA 2K roster gets a lot of hate from some, and then a lot of praise from some. But for me, I think we have to move on from Randle because at the end of the day, JD said it this morning. Is Jimmy Butler the most elite player in the NBA, during the regular season? No. But did he come to play in the playoffs and make an impact in both of his series? Yes. In the playoffs, the game is different, and we need someone to show up. For me, thankful for Randle, just like I was thankful for Tibbs. I think he played great, but I need someone that's going to execute in the postseason. So I move on from Randle, get somebody else, and I bring in a three-point shooter. And now I'm going to hear where we finally disagree.
Yes. I've been waiting for it, Phil. I've been waiting for it the whole show. I've been waiting for it. And I didn't know this was your opinion, so I'm glad that we can actually discuss and debate this thing. Let me just get to the super chat real quick. Dell Music, thank you for the $5 super chat. He said, your verbiage is incorrect, not fire Tibbs. Move on from. Salute to the panel. Okay. Tomato. However you want to put it there. All right, so let me just say first what I agree with you with. Put Julius Randle in a situation where he's the number 3 and he can thrive. 100% agree with that. Second thing, the combination of Brunson, Randle, and RJ is not going to work. Totally agree. I never liked the RJ and Randle pairing from the get-go. I just don't think they occupy sometimes the same spaces on the floor. And when I say that, I mean both of them are not really great three-point shooters. And both of them, their game is about getting to the hole. Even though Julius Randle tries to do other stuff, I think his game truly is about getting in the paint, scoring in there, because he's a bully in there. And RJ needs to get the ball inside the paint as well. Here's where we disagree. If I had to move on from either Randle or RJ, I'm moving on from RJ. Reason number 1. Julius Randle at his position is averaging 25, 10, and 4 or 5 or whatever it is, right? Not too many power forwards in the NBA are doing that. Giannis, and the list remains to be seen. No, not too many people are doing that. I think the problem with Julius Randle and this Knicks offense is he is a primary ball handler. I don't want Julius Randle to be a primary ball handler. So when you talk about him moving now to being the number 3, right? Oftentimes we say the number 1, number 2, number 3. I think it's way more nuanced than that. Right. And I think it's way more nuanced than Julius Randle not being a playoff performer. Right. As Steph likes to say. I think it's way more nuanced than that. During the regular season, he did great. Right. As that guy, handling the basketball or whatever. But when teams double him and it goes to a 7-game series, Julius Randle is not going to be a number 1 guy. I don't even consider Julius Randle to be a number 1 guy to get us over the hump, or a number 2. I've always considered him a legit number 3. Right. And I say number 3 now because you have Brunson there. Right. I don't expect Brunson to be a number 1 to take us over the hump. I think Brunson's tremendous. I think he's phenomenal. But I think as a point guard and being an efficient point guard, he can stay right there at the number 2 position. The Knicks need to add an elite wing player that can handle basketball, first of all, right? Can shoot, second of all, and can be able to play some defense. 3-and-D is what I like to call it, but someone that can also handle the basketball. Right. And I think if you put that across the court from a Jalen Brunson and you have those 2 guys operating, you don't need Julius Randle to handle the basketball and bear the brunt of the majority of the offense and have a super high usage rate and setting up people, because you have 2 guys that are there that can do it already. Right. And I feel like if the Knicks had that, Tom Thibodeau, right, this is with him there, the Knicks would have gotten past this round. And I know it's crazy how we look at coaches and how we look at them based on what they don't have. I think that's definitely a part of that conversation. But I don't want Julius Randle handling the basketball for me. I think that's the issue with the Knicks right now. They need someone at that wing position to be able to bear that brunt. And I get it. He made all NBA doing it during the regular season, but teams weren't defending him like Miami did during the regular season. So I think that's where the issue lies. Now, if RJ Barrett turns out to be that guy, I'm fine with it. We can keep him. We can make him the number one. But I just don't believe in RJ that much. When you say RJ showed up in the playoffs, 20 points and all of that, I mean, yeah, he showed up for himself. I mean, that's for his standards, that's great for what, we saw RJ do during the regular season. But RJ is not going to be the person to take you to that next level. His game is just not that good. He doesn't have that type of game. He can't shoot. His defense is not that great. Knicks fans can say what they want and be delusional about his defense all they want, but his defense is not that great. He is not that guy on the wing that we need, in my opinion, especially playing next to Julius Randle, because they occupy the same space on the floor. So, again, I just think this conversation is much more nuanced than what you said. Obviously, number one, number two, number three. For me, if we had an opportunity to go Jaylen Brown, I'm picking up that phone right now.
Oh yeah,
I'm putting Jaylen Brown. He can dribble the back. He can ball handle. He can shoot, right? And he can be that guy opposite of Jalen Brunson to carry the ball and make Julius Randle into a finisher, right? And one of the things last thing I'll say is what I was hoping the Knicks would do more of, and what I was hoping quickly was going to do was be more of that ball handler in that closing lineup. You put him out there on the floor with Brunson and with Randle. You turn both Brunson into Randle and the finishers, and you have Emmanuel quickly doing the majority of the ball handling. But he just wasn't aggressive, in my opinion. Devin Booker's another one. Oh, man, if we can get Devin Booker, that would be great, in my opinion. But that was one of the reasons why I wanted Emmanuel quickly in that closing lineup, because he had that ability to turn Julius into more of a finisher and Brunson into a finisher. So that's just how I see it. If I had to choose between the two, though, I'm getting rid of RJ, or I'm trading RJ for a wing instead of trading Randle for a wing, because I think that team will be much better.
Yeah, here's the one thing where I have to push back. There's two things. First, I feel like a lot of our players, because we talk about this 25 and 10, like how do you replace 25 and 10? Like stats are stats. Like it's not about how much that guy himself can put up, because there are games that, we got our teeth kicked in and Randle shined, because he put up a lot of buckets, and made a lot of points. We can find That's other fair. Ways. When you look at the games that we thrived in the playoffs, it was RJ had those decent numbers, but everyone else around him was playing better. Okay. Everyone else was thriving as well. Like look at some of those games. Like Obi Toppin had good games. Obi Toppin played well alongside of him. Jalen Brunson played really well alongside of him. If you look, there wasn't a logjam of in the paint between the three of them. Here's the thing about Julius Randle. The thing with Julius Randle is, even though he can maybe stat pad more, at the end of the day, there's two things that separate him and RJ. RJ first, you could tell in that post-game interview, it wrecked him to be out of the series. Okay. It wrecked him to have a bad game. He took so much responsibility all throughout in his post-game interviews. To me, it says a lot what you see in post-game just as much as what you see in-game. He takes a lot of responsibility. Julius Randle loves the word we. We have to go back and look at tape. We could have played better. Very seldom do you see Julius Randle say, I played like complete and utter trash. Yet you have guys like Jalen Brunson who can put up 40 points and make a turnover at the end and be like, I just have to be better. I have to be better. Like, that is something Julius Randle does not do.
So that's a leadership thing. That's a leadership thing. That's what you're talking about. That's a leadership
thing.
Okay.
A leadership thing.
Fair enough.
Second, it's the effort. Okay. Even though RJ Barrett is not the greatest defender, you see RJ Barrett running back with his guy. He's either getting a foul or at least trying and getting past. Like, people are like, oh, RJ gets past, his guy gets past him all the time. Well, I would rather a guy get past him than a guy not have to get past him at all because he's not even standing close to him, which is what we see constantly from Julius Randle. Okay. Lack of even attempts. Like, oh, that guy's getting, Mitch is picking up your guy, and you're not even trying to pick up Mitch's guy, And so that's the whole thing, is there's a difference for me of not great defense and lack of defense in its totality. Like, there's a reason you have guys like Theo Pinson and Reggie Bullock who are, previous teammates of his that can make jokes and say, if you don't play defense with Tibbs, you sit unless you're Julius Randle. Like they are constantly making stabs at the fact that Julius Randle doesn't have to play defense and he gets treated differently, with the criteria. So for me, I want to see the effort. I also want to see the growth. I look at Julius Randle. He's in his 9th season. This was his 9th season, and I look at where he's at and where RJ's at from their 4th seasons each. And I see a lot more potential in RJ Barrett, than I do in Julius Randle. I feel like Julius Randle is where Julius Randle is going to be. Like, I don't see a lot more that Julius Randle is going to offer us. Like, I feel like RJ Barrett can go this summer and show up with something different. Like, show us something else next season. I don't feel like we're going to see that from Julius Randle.
Well, we haven't seen it in the 4 years that he's been here. I mean, he's still
but we have average. Even in the playoffs. Right before, he said, "My shot looks broken. I need to work." He got with his coach, and his shooting was better in that 2nd series and that 3rd series. And the shots that he was taking, you can't say that he was not driving with his head down like he was most of the season. Even that one play that every announcer had to give him praise against the Miami Heat, where typically he would go down with his head and draw the foul because they stopped, like they stopped to draw that charge. Yet he stopped with them and put both feet down to go up instead of straight ahead to make that shot instead of making it a forced layup.
So my follow-up question is, do you expect to see that from RJ all of next season? Do you expect to see that consistency? Because we've seen glimpses of him do this before, right? But his problem has always been consistency, right? And it's almost always since he's been in the league, not a lot of that, right? It's been more like 70-30, 30% of the time he's going to do that, right? And have these games, right? And it just so happened he did it in the playoffs this time, which is good. Not taking that away from him. He played really good playoffs compared to what I thought he was going to do. And then for the other 70%, he's not doing those things. It's like he forgets it, right? So for what you say about Randle, I think it's fair, completely fair. Leadership. You don't have to be the best player on the team to be the leader. I think we all know that already. I don't think Julius Randle's a natural leader, right? He doesn't talk. And when he does talk, and being aggressive, he's yelling at the refs or showing that emotion on the floor, right? I don't think he is a natural leader. I think moving forward or, in the future, if these two are going to be together, I think RJ is going to be more of that leader because some of the things that he says and how he carries himself. So I'm not taking that away from you at all. But to me, personally, if you're going to get rid of – and I'm not by any means saying we need to keep Julius Randle at all costs. No, either one of them can go. You can get rid of RJ or you can get rid of Randle, period. I just think if you get rid of Randle, we still need to upgrade at the 3 spot.
Oh, yeah,
100%.
Sure.
And RJ Barrett, to me, people say, put RJ at the 2. I don't think he's that either, right? So I don't – we still need to upgrade at the 3 no matter
I like
what.
him at the 2 personally, but we could agree to
He can't shoot. He can't shoot. Oh, my God. He cannot shoot the basketball. Shooting guard, he cannot shoot. And to me, in the Knicks offense, you got to have guys that can space the floor, in my opinion. RJ, to me, fits better at the 3 than he does at 2, but I don't been like him at the 3. That's just my opinion. Real quick, I do want to say that you can get rid of Randle, too. I'm not saying by all means get rid of RJ and keep Randle. I think you can get rid of Randle, keep RJ, have Obi go on there and fill in that spot. My question is, or my thing for me, if you get rid of Randle, you got to get rid of Tibbs, too. Because I don't believe that Tibbs is going to maximize Obi because of his style of offense, right? I believe the Knicks can play a faster style of offense. I believe if you get a younger coach in here that can have them move without the basketball, I would like that team. I think that team
I'm
would
all
be good.
for that. I'm all for that.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. I like Randle playing with Brunson and Obi and Mitch and everything like that. You still got to upgrade at the 3 spot, right?
Yep.
But I don't trust Tibbs with that type of lineup because this thing is heavy isolation.
And that's why I want them both. I want them as a package deal.
Right. And I would have no problem with that at all. But if we're talking about keeping Thibodeau, particularly for next season, at the very least, Obi has to go because you're not maximizing Obi having him playing 12 minutes off the bench, right? And to me, you got to upgrade that 3 spot. So no matter what, you got to upgrade the 3. I'm just looking at it from the perspective. If we're going to keep Tibbs and there's a wing that's available, a lot of people don't like Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine will be a good option there. You're going to have to trade RJ because you're not trading Randle for LaVine based on a position. You know what I mean?
All right. So I got a question for you. All right. Let's say 2K lives. All right. Realistic. Let's say we could make, let's say 2K in a realistic trade. All right. Let's say Tibbs does go and you get to figure things out. Like
Yeah.
what is your lineup? What is your ideal starting lineup for the Knicks? Because there's a lot of talk in the offseason about people we could go after, people that, are interested in some of our players, stuff like that. So what would be your starting five? If it was bringing one or two players into our starting five, what would that look like?
This is if we keep Tibbs.
Okay. No, I want if we don't keep Tibbs.
Oh, if we don't keep Tibbs, this is easy.
Yeah.
If we don't keep Tibbs, I'm trading Randle and Mitch away for Ayton. I'm giving Obi an extension, and I'll have him be our starting power forward.
I freaking love you, bro. I love you.
I'm doing that. We still have to find a way to upgrade it to 3. Honestly, I wouldn't mind trading RJ. At that point, you can trade RJ away. Try to get Jaylen Brown in here. RJ makes money, or Fournier or somebody. Plug somebody in at that 3. You have Grimes at the 2. And then Brunson. That's what I'm doing. And Tibbs wouldn't be my coach, though. I would go someone younger.
No, Tibbs got to go. So for me, it's a little bit different. I go Jalen Brunson. I go RJ.
Mm-hmm.
I go and add an actual shooter that we can rely on so that Jalen and RJ don't have to shoot and they can just drive and use what they need to do. I add Klay Thompson, since there's rumors that in order for him and Golden State to stay, that he would need to take a pay cut for the legacy. I don't think he deserves that because he's that good. Add Klay Thompson. I put Obi in so that we have that option for a fast pace. And I add Porzingis back. I bring back the unicorn to have an actual 5 that can stretch, that can play defense. But
by the way, I'm happy you said that because I always thought Porzingis should have been playing the 5. Matter of fact, the Knicks could have. People say, the Knicks wouldn't be able to get Julius Randle if they would have kept Porzingis. Lies. They could have got Julius Randle, play him at the 4, Porzingis at the 5, a stretch 5. Right, someone that can block shots,
and that would have stopped
rebound.
a lot of Julius's struggles of needing to be a shooter instead of a bully ball player. It would have solved so many issues.
Correct. I think the spacing issue is a thing, particularly the reason why the Knicks, and you're going to need shooting no matter what, but some of the reasons why the spacing was just off is because Mitch is just down there, great offensive rebounder. I get it, but you can't grab an offensive rebound if you make shots. Right. You're not going to grab, and one of the reasons why he's a great offensive rebound. I'm not taking anything away from him, but we missed a lot of shots. So those offensive rebounds are going to be there for the taking. He saves us on a lot of possessions, right? But having a stretch 5 out there changes everything for the Knicks, in my opinion. The reason why I say Ayton is because Ayton may not be a stretch 5, but he also knows how to get the hell out the way. You could throw the ball down to Ayton on the block. He could turn around, post 15, 20 feet, and go to work and do his thing. I think he averages, 18 and 10 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Efficient, 18 and 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not going to be the defender that Mitchell Robinson is, but to me, I'm looking more about the offense. I'm trying to open it up.
He at least plays a little bit of both, and he's not a freaking liability when it comes to the offense.
Correct. So I totally agree with you. So, and that's just fantasy land. Listen, it's going to take a lot for some of those things to happen, the contracts and stuff like that. But this is I want people to understand. I am not a Julius Randle stan, no matter how much Hard Will likes to say, salute for the Love of the Game podcast. I'm not a Julius Randle stan. And State of New York Knicks podcast likes to say the same thing. If we had an opportunity to get rid of Randle and bring someone in here better at a position of need, I'm all for it. Right? So this is not a RJ versus Randle thing. I'm just telling you, based on if the Knicks keep Tom Thibodeau, I want to upgrade at that 3 spot. And I think RJ is just not someone that's going to fit next to Randle. I think their games don't complement one another. And I think the floor is just so compressed as it is, even with Mitch out there. Right? So that's just where I'm at with that. Let me get a couple more comments, man, and I'll leave the floor to you so we can close it out. Daylight Music says, Josh, pure facts. Thank you. Knicks Worldwide said RJ is the better asset. Teams don't want Randle and may come down to that in the superstar trade. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Again, it's hard to find. I don't. I think Phoenix can use a player like Julius Randle. They can definitely use him. And there was other teams out there that were rumored to be trading for him last offseason.
I thought he meant a better asset for us. No, I disagree with that for sure. He would fit perfectly in a lot of teams that are trying to win right now.
Right. And I think there's an argument that can be made based on RJ Barrett's regular season. He's overpaid. I think you can make that argument too. it's out there. Let's see. Jamar says, love RJ Barrett type of offense the Knicks are running don't fit Randle or RJ. Agreed. They need to run more. If they were running more, I don't think we would have this discussion about Randle. I agree.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Tibbs, right? And his lack of offense, right? Thibodeau is ruling over Dylan Brooks. This is a move, I think. This doesn't take us anywhere. It's like another player.
No.
Yeah, he can defend, and he's going to be that guy that punks somebody in the face or chop it up with people. But offensively, we need guys who can shoot the basketball. We need more of those types of guys.
Here's the thing. A lot of people are saying that. This is what drives me nuts. Is they're like, oh, he's got that old school like Mason, Oakland. Like, no. Those guys talk trash when they could back it up. Those guys were willing to get in scuffles to back up what they were saying. You see a lot of cowardice, when it comes to Dylan Brooks, that he wants to run his mouth, but then when pedal, hits the metal, you got guys like, LeBron James that are like, all right, talk your smack, and then I'm going to put you in your place. So I think it's a little bit different. I don't think Dylan Brooks is a, New York Knick mentality kind of guy like people are painting him to be. I think he's a lot more bark than he is actual bite.
That too. D. Cooler said actually a Booker.
Dreams.
Oh man. Booker.
Either one of them are dreams.
Booker's a bucket. That guy is efficient, can shoot from. Oh man, that's one of my favorite players in the league. Unlimited. Oh my God, that's like saying if we can get KD, we drop Julius. Yeah, if we can get. Hell yeah, damn right. Yeah, bye. Anybody.
Yeah,
anybody can go. B-baller for real. Some of you guys are trying to hold on to Randle at your own detriment. You've been wrong all this time, and you refuse to just admit it. It's just embarrassing. Like I said, I'm not looking just to keep Julius Randle at all costs. I'm actually giving you nuance behind it. Bro. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just saying, if we're going to keep Tibbs, it makes sense to, I don't know. I don't want to keep elaborating the same point over and over again. Ashley Inc. 1 says, I agree with you, Josh. A ball handling 3D is number one, and it's needed. Then either Randle or RJ can go either way, or both can stay. Yeah, I'm with either one of them going, or both.
Oh yeah, to get Mikal Bridges, I would be fine with one of them going for Mikal Bridges. Please sign me up. Like that's another.
If we would have got him, if that's a player right there that puts everything together, puts the puzzle together. Okay, let's get a couple more of these. Thank y'all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Jigga Man Porto, am I crazy and saying only touch with Jalen Brunson like for real asking? No, that's not crazy at all.
No, true.
DLI Music agrees. He said, yes, Jaylen Brown. Yeah, I know. That's a dream for me. B-Baller Forever says, yeah, you can see so many people still trying to patch this because they don't want to say my bad. It shouldn't be this difficult to course correct. The majority of y'all see it. You are the last. I don't know what else to say, man. RJ doesn't, send me in Togo, RJ doesn't play like a killer out to dominate. I agree. And I just don't think he's that good enough. I'm just being real. I never have. I don't hate him. I appreciate what he's done. I think he is a better leader than Julius Randle. I think he's reserved, and I think he is resilient, which is of all really good components you want to have on a team. I just don't think he's that dude. I don't think he's that like some of the RJ
So
fans.
here's my thing. Because in the playoffs, he was. So my question is.
He wasn't, though, Phil. I don't think he was.
He was. You look at the way that he was playing. Like, what people rarely talk good about the Knicks. But when they talk about how he's at least doing a good effort defensively on Jimmy Butler, when you look at them saying that he's willing to drive, he's instead of being the one who's getting his freaking stuff smacked at the basket, he's the one that actually went up and smacked Jimmy Butler's, attempt at the basket. Like, he did have a lot more of an eye of the tiger mentality. And I think because we didn't see that in the season at all, it's hard to acknowledge that we did see some of that in the playoffs. For me personally, if I'm looking at it, I would rather someone show up at the end of the season when rubber hits the road than someone that disappears at the end of the season but did great. Like, either way, it's a catch-22. Like,
but there's reasons for that, though, Phil. There's reasons for that. I just think that the team, like, I get it. I totally get the frustration with Randle. I get it. He didn't show up in the playoffs. I'm not making any excuses for that. I just think people are looking at him from a number one lens, and I don't think he's a number one guy. I just don't think he is that. I think he is a number three guy, like you said, and he shouldn't be the primary ball handler. I don't think that's him, and that's his role. That's been his role since he's been here. So if we get another ball handler in there to take that away from him and make him in just 2 and 2, he can still score 25, 10, and 4 off the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's how good I think he is. You know what I mean? So I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying, I just
No, you good. You good.
That's just how I'm looking at it, man. Salute to SK in the building. He said, "Phil, you're wrong." And Unlimited Box said, "Who is this guy? Does he have a show?" Look in the description of this video. You know what I'm saying?
This is how I know that you're not the biggest Randle stan. You know, you were identifying that. I know SK, so I know that you can't because he's already got that, address. He already has that house locked down as the #1 Randle stan. So we're good. I knew you couldn't be because he's already got that title reserved. So we good.
Salute SK. We only messing with you, man. Yo, he loves him some Randle. I already know. All right, let's get a couple more here, man. Let's close this out right. Knicks are nice. Bad optics. Randle's definitely not a natural leader. I agree. RJ ain't no leader either. I think RJ has more leadership qualities, though, especially for his age. There's not too many 22, 23-year-olds, acting like RJ does, not being in the media and social media and all of that stuff. So I definitely disagree with RJ ain't no leader. I think he has a lot of potential in that regard. And, again, he doesn't have to be the best player to be the leader, right? Randle has hit his ceiling. RJ is not close to his ceiling. I don't know how much better RJ. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to put a limit on him because, I still want him to be that way, especially if the Knicks are going to keep him. I want him to be better, so I'm not going to say that. BX Mail, the way RJ dribbles in the fast break is god-awful. Okay. All right, let me get one more comment in here, and then I'll leave the floor for you, Phil, before we close this out. Bam is not a #1 and he showed up. Randle's not a money player. Okay, fair enough. Well, thank y'all for tuning in with me. I appreciate it. Phil, thank you for coming on with me, man. I know you had some family obligations and you extended the show, being on here with me. So I really appreciate that. The floor is yours, man. Let the people know where they can find you and what you got brewing next.
Appreciate it.
No pun intended.
Yeah, Josh, I appreciate you, bro. Like I freaking love connecting with you. It's a lot of fun, and this is what to me Knick fandom is. Being able to disagree without being a friggin' prick about it. If you can't be a Knick fan that disagrees respectfully, then just delete your Twitter, delete your whatever.
Right.
Like, we don't need you, voicing your opinion if you can't do it respectfully. Even joking with SK. SK loves to give me, as much heat as he can on my takes with Randle. I still love the guy. Still hang out with the guy if I see him, Like, I'd love to take him out for a drink. Just don't talk about Randle with me. So, that's the thing. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here. So I'm part of a trio on Morning Brew Sports with my brother, my actual brother, Jiggaman Porto, and my brother from another mother, Hector, Project Nerd HQ. We run the Knicks Morning Brew. We got one more big show this season where our fellow sister, the Queen Steph, will be with us on Friday. We have a panel of 4. We got the Queen. We got Alex from Knicks Fan TV that'll be there. Our guy Lee Escobedo from the Knick of Time show will be there as well. You guys love causing friction with each other. I love it. And then last we got Danny Duarte, who is that guy. If you've seen the video, you know who he is. The one that's like, Spider, don't you wish you came to the Knicks? Like, he's gonna be rocking with us because his fandom and his videos are hilarious. So we went live Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 11 a.m. The last one for this season will be Friday at 11 a.m. And then throughout the summer after the playoffs finish, I'll be doing a show called Knick at Night, the Knicks at Night. And I'll for sure have my boy Josh on there. So
you already know.
Me and some friends, just talking about whatever news is coming up throughout the season. So I appreciate you guys. We are right now, because we were on a different channel working with a different company early in the season, and we built that channel up. But we really felt like it was time for us to kind of do our own thing and have other people come under our channel and launch their shows. So we left the comfortability of monetization and the comfortability of like having a built up channel, and we started over. So we have a giveaway right now. Once we reach back to 1,000 on this new channel, that we'll be buying you your jersey of choice. We'll be doing a raffle. It could be a Knick jersey, it could be a Jets jersey, a Giants jersey, maybe a Mets jersey. We haven't really decided if y'all are included yet, but we'll be doing a raffle for that. So if you guys could subscribe to the channel right now, I see that I think we got like 100 something rocking right now, almost 200. I would love to, have you guys part of what we're doing. And Josh, I thank you for the opportunity, man. You've been a blessing, this season, and I love the friendship that we're able to build.
Absolutely. Listen, Yankee fans are something else, y'all. Yankee fans are something else. They're going to win a championship every year. We know how this goes already. They just talk. They're full of themselves. Thanks to my man Phil Porto. Again, Knicks Morning Brew. Go on the link in the description of this video, and you're going to be able to. Yankee fans are something else. Like I said, go on the link in the description of this video. You'll be able to check out their content. They're awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Knicks Morning Brew Sports. Salute to Heck. Salute to Jigga Man. And Phil, I definitely appreciate you for coming on. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and head out of here. Enjoy the rest of my, Tuesday, Wednesday. I forget, Wednesday. And I'm going to enjoy the rest of it. I think the Knicks will be okay, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be a lot of content coming in the offseason. So strap up, get ready, because it's going to be a long ride, ladies and gentlemen. For Phil, this is UnclefOOlio from MBK in the Kontroversy saying, I'm out. One.